What's up, guys? It's G here, and welcome back to the Grizzly Life podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the first 3 episodes because today we're bringing the final chapter of our history series. In this episode, we will be covering 2021 to present day. Also, just a reminder, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe, follow, and turn on podcast notifications. Now let's get into episode 4 of the Grizzly Life podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Grizzly Life podcast. We've got Garrett behind the producer chair again today, as usual, and we've got Colton here, ready to fire off some stories here for us. And for today, we'll be wrapping up our history here that we've been covering across the last 3 episodes. So today will definitely be the most rapid pace we're going at. A lot of what we've done prior is almost kind of moving season to season or month to month, if you will. A lot of small stories, that being, like, say, the first install we've ever had, or some smaller gym stories starting out, original employees. But today is really going to focus on some of the rapid expansion that we've experienced here the last 5 years or so. So, Colton, we're going to get started again and kind of pick up where we left off. So, on episode 3, we just briefly kind of went into COVID. We talked about Berlin some. We mentioned a bit of the startup of it and then kind of briefly touched on how it opened up. And obviously we've gone into Princeton and Green Lake a lot, but just to start here for me, kind of take it back now to March/April of 2021 here for me and just kind of discuss what Berlin looked like opening up.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, guys, for joining us here on episode 4 of many. We are going to start off with Berlin here. So going back to 2021, we did open our Berlin facility. It did not start as a 24/7 facility. It was, the first month was kind of like a soft open, get people in the door and just kind of get to meet and greet as many people as possible. And then we transitioned into a 24/7 scheme about a month later. When we did open Berlin, like I mentioned last episode, when we bought Berlin, our goal for the facility was to be half gym and half warehouse. We didn't really know how we were going to go about that because in our warehouse section for Priority Fitness, it requires a lot of building new fitness equipment and moving it around and unboxing it, lots of garbage, lots of noise, all that kind of stuff. So we weren't really sure the best way to go about it. So we just did it. We had about, I would say, 7,000 square feet of gym and probably about 5,000 or 6,000 square feet of warehouse. The way that looked, again, today is not much of a story day, but when we were half and half, we had one loading dock there, and so we would be accepting semi-loads of brand new fitness equipment in box. We'd have 4 or 5 guys at the warehouse or the gym, and they would be unboxing everything, building it, getting it ready to go out, using their impacts again. And our gym members our Berlin members are some of the best members we've got. They were just happy to have a new facility in Berlin. They weren't complaining at all, but it was a mess. Literally the whole time. We had this roll of turf in the Berlin facility, and when we got really big shipments in, we had to take the turf away from the gym so we could put brand new equipment like on our floor so we could build it and have space for it. So it really wasn't an ideal situation, but that is how we operated the Berlin facility for the beginning there. So it was very interesting. So that's what we got there.
All right, so I remember distinctly, like you said there, like you get treadmill decks coming in on like stacked 5 high, and you're stacking them all up on the gym floor and obviously trying to unload those there. But granted, that's when I first started working there, and it's kind of how I remember it. But obviously a transition out of that pretty quickly here. That being said, though, you're only a few months into Berlin at this point. So and about that summer, you had PF working out of there. You had the gym just starting to open up. But at this time, you've got kind of some interest or something starting around with Toma too, correct?
Yeah, so I think it was like June of 21. I actually got a call from one of my teachers and a football coach from Watoma High School. And it was interesting because, again, Berlin had just opened. We bought it in early 2020, Berlin, and transitioned into the gym, opened early 2021. And now we've only been open here for like 3-4 months. And I got a call from a football coach of mine, a teacher of mine, basically saying, hey, I see what you're doing. I noticed, or maybe I heard that you'd maybe want to have a facility in Watoma someday. is that of interest to you? Kind of what's going on there. So he approached me. We had a conversation. It didn't, it was just kind of like yeah, I'm interested. I was younger than I am now, and I was just like aggressive and wanting to open up more gyms, right? Like, yeah, Watoma would be super cool. So he called me basically saying it was always one of my goals it was my 10-year goal to not close my facility, but sell my fitness center here in Watoma. But, we're on year 7. I see what you're doing. I wouldn't mind if you bought me out now. And so that was very shocking, very surprising. I know a lot of our Watoma members think that maybe I came into Watoma and gave the other fitness center in town an ultimatum, which isn't actually true. He actually approached me and we made a deal. But so he called me, we talked about it, nothing really happened of it. And I think like a month later, we kind of sat down, went over some numbers and said, you know what, I am interested in buying your business, your Watoma Fitness Center business, but relocating it to a new building. So I worked out a deal with a lady in town in Watoma. We did a land contract deal there as well. Got this 15,000 or 14,000 square foot old grocery store style building right downtown. Can't miss it. Everybody's going to drive by it every day. And so we got a land contract deal there. We made a deal with Mr. Zertler to buy his fitness center. So we're in mid to late 2021 now, and our goal was, I think we bought our Watoma building in September-ish of 21. Our goal was to open that facility as soon as we possibly could. So with Zertler still keeping their facility open, they were going to stay open until December, like basically Christmas. They were going to close their facility. We were going to move all of their stuff out, all of their equipment, because that was part of the deal we bought. We bought the equipment and the memberships. We were going to move all of their equipment into our facility, and we were going to open up on January 1st, and it was going to be great and easy. Well, it's not how it turned out to be. We bought this Watoma facility, didn't know much besides that, hey, we want to open a gym as fast as possible. Well, apparently the gym space was actually too large for the county we were in as far as cubic feet goes. They made us go to state permit processing and all that stuff. We had to get these crazy plans drawn up, which caused a lot of issues, added a ton of extra cost, a ton of extra time. So our Watoma facility actually there was no gym in Watoma the first time in like 23 years or whatever, because that's how long the existing location was open. There was no existing gym in Watoma open for, it was like, when was our open date in Watoma? 2022?
Yeah, so I think, considering we bought it back in September 21, it really didn't open up until like that late summer, early fall. So it was almost
of the following year, right?
Yeah, the following year. So it was 9 months or so.
Yeah, so we were closed for almost a year. Not ideal situation. I think it was 8 or 9 months that the gym was not functioning. So we apologized, Watoma. We did everything we could, but the state process was a pain in the butt. There's not a whole lot we could do about it. But that is kind of how that deal played out. They actually reached out to me. We made a deal happen. And so we relocated a fitness center, and that's kind of how Watoma came to be. I should probably brief when we bought the Watoma property, we actually utilized it as a warehouse space for PF, for Priority Fitness as well. That is what allowed our Berlin facility to kick Priority Fitness out. That allowed us to make our entire Berlin gym and no longer half warehouse, half gym. And so we then relocated all of our warehouse stuff in Berlin all over to Watoma. And so basically Watoma, while it was closed and being renovated, turned into Priority Fitness's new warehouse and kind of allowed Priority Fitness to pay the rent and the mortgage there. And so that's kind of how that operated as well. So all of that new equipment we were doing in Berlin is now relocated to Watoma while we're waiting to get Watoma up and running. So
So then just to kind of keep a tab on all the gyms that are operating at this point. So Berlin's going 24/7. Princeton is still running. As you're buying Watoma, so we'll just take it back slightly here to 21, before it's even open, before PF's moved in. With the Green Lake facility here, that had shut down now at this point, pretty much kind of bang when Watoma was happening.
Yeah, so I think last episode I wasn't very clear, and I know last episode I was kind of hopping around a lot, but our Green Lake facility was open most of 2021. I believe it closed in September. It was very bang. It was ironic. We basically bought Watoma on a land contract, and then I think Green Lake closed like 25 days later, something like that. So we actually got to move all of Green Lake's fitness center equipment right into storage in Watoma. So luckily we didn't have to incur any storage costs on that. But so now late 2021, Green Lake is officially closed. Berlin's operating at full speed ahead. Princeton's operating full speed ahead. And now we've bought Watoma, with a deal in place to open a Watoma facility as well.
And then again, so we got 21 out of the way here. We have the two facilities running, and then Watoma's kind of serving as your true PF headquarters at this point, if you will. So it's got all of your storage in it. Now moving into 22, you've got all three gyms operating, but now Princeton's at a point now where it's moving around. PF is moving around with the Watoma building. So do you want to just kind of explain how the Princeton move and the PF move are kind of going on at the same time?
Sure. So our Princeton facility is Princeton is where we started, and Princeton has a soft spot, or I have a soft spot for Princeton because it's where I started when I was 18 and 19 and stuff like that. So even though Princeton's in the small little town, population of 1,200 people, I've always wanted to keep that gym alive. Somebody came, and so we were functioning in the one facility from 2016, 2017 through 2022 at some point. And then some guy came and purchased the building that we were in, and he was nice about it. He said, "Hey, I'm willing to work with you. I need you to be out of this part of the building at this time, and this part of the building at this time, and then we'll let your gym stay open," because I actually had some storage there at the time as well. But he kind of gave us the ultimatum saying, "Hey, I'll give you some time to keep the gym opening, but try to find something and move out," basically, right? So he worked with us, but at the time we needed to find a new location, and so we actually found this old sock factory from like the 50s there in Princeton, and that was our new home. So we relocated basically on the same street, just a quarter of a mile down the end of the road, opened our new Princeton facility there, and funny enough, we actually had warehouse there as well. So now PF, or Priority Fitness, has space in Watoma for storage, and the downside of the Watoma storage was there was no loading dock. We just had a big grocery store building that was about 15,000 square feet. And with the purchase of that property, it actually came with a 4,000 square foot outbuilding. So that was actually functioning as a lot of like the PF warehouse coming and going. But again, when you don't have a loading dock and you've got semis coming, most of them don't have lift gates, we're hand unloading stuff. Like, it's not ideal. So when we were forced to move our Princeton facility, there's a warehouse there, and it was a 40,000 square foot building, and we were only renting like 4,000 square feet. And so we cut a deal with the owner saying, "Hey, we'd like to use some warehouse in the back." And so Priority Fitness now has like a loading dock and warehouse space. Again, it's not ideal. It's not heated or cooled or anything. It's just a big open cinder block type building. But so that's kind of where we're at. Princeton relocated. We've got some warehouse space. Priority Fitness, as you can tell, has never been really a company that's had a home. We've always leveraged Priority Fitness to bounce around. That's always been kind of our model, is that we buy a building, Priority Fitness moves into it, it covers the overhead until the gym's up and running and we're making enough money. Then Priority Fitness moves again. And so that was actually the early on model, was that Priority Fitness would just be like the renter until the gym was making enough money. Then Priority Fitness would move, help us find the new location. And so that was kind of the model we were doing.
So Princeton's finally starting to, again, sell into a new building. Priority's half operating out of there, but it's not like truly on the gym like it was back in Berlin. Berlin's kind of letting itself actually truly expand out into that gym space and fully fleshing out into basically a lot of what it looks like today. Like, that layout hasn't changed too much. Obviously, there's new amenities and everything that have been added to this point, but otherwise, Berlin has pretty much just grown and thrived since then. Still here in 22, though. Obviously, as you get to that fall of that year, Watoma finally gets a chance to open. It's where it's at now. Again, that building's continuing to expand. I mean, there's continuous projects always happening there that's span into today. But as anyone that's listened or that kind of follows Grizzly Fitness now knows, that we didn't just stop at those three locations. So still here in 22, around that time before Watoma opened, there was another location that you're looking at in Rosendale specifically, correct?
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't remember how we got in contact with this gym owner in Rosendale. I can't remember exactly how it came to fruition, but I know that we were having conversations, and I think like June of 22 or something like that, July of 2022. And so Rosendale is a town of 1,000 people. It's nothing crazy, but it's got surrounding towns that, the high school there is combined with Brandon, which is down the road. There's some other small town, it's around here in Wisconsin. We've just got a bunch of small towns that, you have to travel to get to kind of where you want to go. So there's a small facility in Rosendale. They were operating not 24/7. They were forced to open it every morning at 5 a.m. They gave a couple members keys so they could lock it up at 7 p.m. Like, it wasn't just running very well or efficiently. And so somehow we started talking with the owner, and it sounds like he's interested in selling. So we start talking, and we kind of go back and forth where we make a deal, and then I'm just too lazy because we're trying to get Watoma open, but then I always knew he hadn't sold yet. So I think we were talking for a good 6 months before we kind of finally pulled the trigger in a way where we kind of had a handshake agreement. So June of 2022, we're talking about it, and I think it would have been the end of 23.
Yeah, into the fall now of
So
23 is when it finally comes to fruition.
Yeah, so the fall of 23, we finally signed paperwork, gave the guy some cash, and our goal was to just keep a small community gym alive because that's what Grizzly Fitness is about. As you can see, we're primarily in small communities, and we knew that this gym needed some extra loving and some just new equipment and 24/7 and all that kind of stuff. So we bought Rosendale in September of 23 or whatever it was, or October, and now we've got a fourth location. This facility is only 3,000 square feet. It's nothing crazy, but again, we were kind of doing it more for the community to keep it alive. We'd hate to see a small community like that not have a facility, so now we've got Rosendale, just a little facility that's got 100 members, and that's what that is about. So,
So now, really in the last 2 years here, 2.5 years, you've gone from Green Lake, obviously something you operate, and then Princeton, you've expanded now another 3 locations now in under 3 years, but it doesn't stop there yet. 24 was even still a bigger year. So again, there was a very bang process there as far as partnerships, as far as new locations. So dive in O-Town a little bit here for me and just break down what finally brought to fruition. We're just going to completely combine forces here, make something great. We both have great knowledge to this point that we've been able to stay open this long. So why finally now remerging?
Sure, yeah. So Jacob and I, Jacob Colburn is the owner of O-Town Iron, and like we said in the previous episodes, we've had a relationship now for 7 years, on and off, just here and there, helping him out with expansion of his gym, new equipment, fixing his gym equipment, whatever it was, we were always kind of talking back and forth. And so he has got a facility, like we said, the old Planet Fitness location in Oshkosh is now O-Town, right next to Pick and Save on Jackson Street in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And I think, between Jacob and I think it was just kind of one of those, we want to grow faster, and you guys have the equipment, and I've got the systems in place at my facility. And so Jacob and I always kind of talked about maybe partnering at some point or doing something, or maybe a future location. Well, we kind of just we just kind of went for it and said, you know what, why don't we just do this now? Why are we waiting? Let's make this gym more profitable. Let's make it more awesome for Oshkosh. Let's get some new equipment in there. And so that's what we did. We primarily partnered just to allow faster growth for O-Town. Again, having Priority Fitness and being able to fix equipment and sell equipment and get equipment at cost and all that kind of stuff, that was the main play there. So the way our partnership works is I do a lot of our finances and equipment sides of things, and Jacob does the day-to-day operations and the managerial stuff there. So May of 2024, we finally started working on the paperwork aspect, and I think our LLC was finalized in June or July, and we were rolling hot, and everything was getting transferred over. And so we created a new LLC called Grizzly O-Town LLC. So that's just a partnership deal there. So that's kind of why I say we're at 5.5 locations or 6 locations with his. So, and again, this is the first facility we're in a major area. We're in a town of
60,000.
Yeah, 60,000 or so. So definitely different from the Grizzly Fitness model, but it was definitely something that I think is good for us to try and figure out as well, just so we can be multifaceted or understanding of every market kind of thing. So yeah, that's how that O-Town agreement is working, and we're still rolling hot. We're still getting new equipment in over there, and that's what's going on.
And then lastly here, at least our newest location to this point, here we've got one more that also serves as a buyout location that was pre-existing. we have our Amro location now as well. So do you want to touch lightly on Amro here?
Yeah, so funny enough, a brief story about Amro. I actually trained there when I was probably like 19. I had one of my good lifting partners at the time actually lived in Amro, and he hit me up and he's like, "Hey, dude, like let's go get a pump right in Amro." I'm like, "All right, cool." Like I didn't really have a gym, or maybe I was even 18. This might have been like right when I got back from Colorado, so I didn't really open a studio yet, and I was just traveling around the gym. So I was like, "Yeah, let's go get a workout." So go there, work out in this cool like grungy style gym in Amro. And I'm like, "Oh, this is cool," and like this would be so cool to own someday, you know. And that was kind of the end of that conversation. That was just kind of what I was thinking. It'd be so cool to own this gym someday. This is a really cool facility. Well, so in 2024, Nolan, one of my best friends growing up and one of our PF guys, was actually servicing gym equipment for the owner of Amro Iron. And the guy makes a very brief comment to Nolan, and he's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling this place. I just don't know. I've got a lot of other businesses and irons in the fire type thing." And Nolan goes, "Well, if you do, you should definitely talk to Colton about it because I bet he'd be interested in buying it." And so I start talking to Nick, the previous owner, and I say, I would love to own this place. I'd love to make it. They already actually had the same 24/7 system we had, so the conversion and the systems moving over was rather easy. But I was just saying, it'd be so cool to own this gym. We're going to keep it the same style you've got, Nick. We're going to clean it up. We're going to bring in more equipment. And he had a couple other people interested in buying it too, but he wanted to make sure whoever bought it was going to continue kind of on with a cool facility. So I basically told him all of our plans. We cut a deal with him, and we actually did like a purchase agreement style where we money down in end of 24 and then a balloon payment basically. Again, just another way we structured the deal to make it happen as far as like the expansion goes and how we've been able to do this, because a lot of these deals have not involved like banking and mortgages and all that stuff. A lot of it's been land contract and cutting deals with owners and that stuff. But so yeah, Nolan just happened to be there at the right place at the right time. Nick was like, "Hey, I might sell it." He went back and forth with a couple of their buyers. He liked us the best, and so we cut a deal with Nick. And now we've got our, sixth location in Amro. So we've got Grizzly Amro now. It's about 4,500 square feet. We'd love the opportunity to make it larger someday for Amro, but we're still in that early stages here of finishing all of the renovations there and new equipment there and all that stuff. But yeah, now we've got 6 locations, so that's where we're at.
I was saying that realistically catches everyone up to speed now, rather than, so within the last year that I've really been here full time, I'd say the way we've best explained it is that we're trying to maximize and grow the most vertically on the 6 that we currently have versus trying to expand and find the next 2 or 3 each year to kind of buy out this gym or open this new location or go to this one. And with that, I think there's been a lot of success with it. I think there's been a lot of satisfaction on the customer side of things, just seeing that there's that much investment back into the pre-existing locations versus trying to go on to the next one. But I'm just curious from your perspective with these 6 locations there are and all the different ways that they've started up, like say in the Prince location where it existed for so long, you could invest a lot of time into it, and then how they all open at different rates and different paces. Do you think it's been the easiest to completely start from ground zero and build up something like a Berlin or Watoma? Or do you think it was easier in the cases of, say, Rosendale locations or Amro locations where they were pre-existing and you almost have to convert them over to the Grizzly way, if you will?
Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to both ways. There's a lot of satisfaction in starting from the ground up. There's a lot of like, we did this and like we built this and this is how we designed it and this is our brand. Like that stuff is very satisfying with that kind of model, the ground up model. There are pros to buying an existing location and making it your brand and that stuff. That one of the cons of doing it that way is that you have to take what everybody's already thinking of that facility in like those small communities, like whatever kind of wrap that gym already has or what kind of facility it's been in the past. You now have to like get out in the community and tell people there's this big change coming. Trust us, it's going to be different. It's not going to be like it was before, in the case where maybe some people have bad taste about that facility for whatever reason. So that being said, I feel like it's easier in a sense of buying an existing location and opening it and going because it's there. Now you just got to make it what you want. but it's almost harder in a sense because of the community, and it's not new, and people still think of it as the old facility and still have all that going on, so it's back and forth. I think for expansion purposes, if you want to grow and scale quickly, definitely buy existing facilities, rebrand, and make them better. But it is a lot more satisfying in a sense to buy a building, go from ground zero all the way up. I just think that's really cool too. So I don't know if that really answers your question. It's kind of back and forth, but there's definitely pros and cons to both. It's easier and quicker to buy an existing location. It's a lot more satisfying to build what you envision too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I figured there have to be pros and cons both ways. Just in the case of, I think I'll use Berlin as an example, just because Berlin is almost at like correct me if I'm wrong here. Berlin's almost at a point of you could obviously shuffle things around and change things, but like it's almost there. Like after 4 and 5 years, it's basically as good as it can get. But in the case of, like you said, Amro, so like that took 4 years to build, but Amro obviously can do renovations as well. But like you said, it's already pre-created. Like you don't have to make new rooms or create new spaces necessarily. Obviously, that'll come in the future, like you said, with continuing to expand it and make it better. But one more question I did have, kind of relating to the growth aspect of things. Just given we're at the point now where we're caught up to modern day, we have all our current locations covered as far as their opening process and what the steps leading up to that were. And this answer might be biased for you just because I think we're always having fun in the process, but have you had more fun and enjoyment in this growth in that way where you're expanding, like say map size and obviously where you're covering, or have you had more fun really focusing on, like, say, the systems and the offerings at each location? Like, how can we do more for Amro, or how can we offer this at this location? How can we really best serve our current customers?
Yeah, I feel like in years prior, the mindset's been very like how fast and how large can we scale, like how many facilities, how much of the map can we cover, and that's still like fun and exciting, and we still want to definitely expand and bring awesome facilities to small communities because that's what we specialize in. But as of recent, especially here in 2025, end of 2024, we're getting to the point where we've got a decent amount of employees, and like a decent amount of people count on our company for, their paycheck, right? And what they, the way that they need to live and provide for themselves or their family or whatever. Like we're getting to the point where we need to focus on the operations and the systems of our business. We need to make sure we're keeping people around long term. We need to make sure that we're scaling internally in a sense, or we're building our businesses better and stronger, so that way we can continue providing for our employees and just making it like the best workplace possible. So for me, it's been a lot of fun actually working on how the business operates and how to make it operate better, more smooth, maybe getting a new kind of platform or software to help make things easier. So that part's been really fun, because once that is hammered out and like way more streamlined, because we all know 3, 4, 5 years ago, there weren't many systems. It was just kind of like, do it, do it, do it. We're young, just like keep working hard, whatever. Not that we're not working hard now, but now it's like, all right, how do we work smarter? How do we get these things organized? And that has actually been it's all fun, but this has been really cool too. So
Our side. Plus, not that it's like we're not expanding, like you mentioned. Like obviously, you're always looking at what could be the next one or what will be the next ones, but to have the systems that we're building now and to almost give back to our existing members or just continue to invest into them, given, like say in the instance of Princeton, just given that we haven't touched on it quite yet, but I'll let you kind of take the floor on that, especially with the new building that we're in just in the last few months. Do you kind of want to touch on that and just how it's the story of how it's obviously went to our first location, then the sock factory, and how we've been able to kind of give back and give them like the true like home gym that we've always wanted for them?
yeah, that is one thing that we left out. So Princeton is now in its third home in the same town, which is not easy finding commercial properties in a town of 1,200 people. But yes, so we were in this building, what we call the sock factory, because it was a sock factory back in the 50s and 60s. And the owner we were originally renting from, we'll just say that he no longer owned it, and these new people came and purchased it, basically. And there was some issues with us renting from them. So long story short, they kind of said, hey, you need to move out of here by the end of the year. Well, luckily we did purchase a new building from actually one of our gym members named Shuri. She was awesome to work with. She really helped us out. So Shuri, if you listen to this episode, thank you. But she basically sold us her building, which used to be kind of like a thrifty style store and just kind of like knickknacks and that kind of stuff. That's what a lot of Princeton is. It's 7,000 square feet. We bought that building in hopes to turn it into a gym like late January, early February. The other Princeton people, the sock factory we're in, they said, no, you have to be out by December 30th or whatever. So we hurried up and got as much done as we could at the Princeton facility. Now, our Princeton gym was actually closed from like January 1 through January 15th or something, which is like the worst possible time to be closed. And that this is of 2025. But long story short, we got this Princeton facility up and open. It's actually a building that dates back to like the late 1800s. We did all these renovations to it by basically taking down the drop ceiling and the walls. We found all these original murals from like 1905. Super cool, super historic building. We've actually got a lot of local publicity or whatever you want to call it in the newspapers and that stuff because of the history there. Princeton's one of these small historic towns, and it's we bought a piece of history. So now it does feel great because Princeton is where we originally started. It's never had a true home. It's never had a facility that we can like, truly not care about, but to do what we want to do to it and give back to the community. So we finally have that with this facility. Again, it's about 7,000 square feet, and the renovations are still underway, but it's much better than Princeton has had in the past, and we own it, so that allows us to do a lot more and not ask the landlords and all that stuff. So it's pretty awesome.
Obviously, there's more projects that we're continuing to expand on, being this, and whether that's the training that we do, other systems within the gym, amenities coming in different facilities, classes, personal training, whatever the case is. So that really brings us up to modern day here for all you listening out there. Do you have anything else you want to touch on really story-wise, or otherwise we really covered 7-8 years within 4 episodes?
Yeah, I think we're good there. Like we said earlier, the point of today's episode was just to kind of wrap up and give you guys nothing, there's a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 3, 4, 5 years, but the point of this history was to tell you guys where we started and how we've grown to where we're at now. There's a lot of stories and a lot more in-depth stuff we can go into, which I think is what we're going to do with the future podcast, is kind of bring on some guests, talk about it, what it was like when they were with us in 2017 or 2018, or maybe last year, whatever it is. But we want to bring in some guests, get their point of view, kind of elaborate a little bit on some stories. And, the goal of today was just to kind of give you a quick wrap on each facility we have and kind of the history of each of those without going too crazy in depth. Now that we've kind of wrapped up the brief of our history, we're going to still be releasing 2 episodes a week. So tune into those. There'll be a lot of guests on, a lot of fun conversations, probably a lot of memories we'll bring up. And then we'll also start getting into like maybe some general business stuff, maybe some general mindset stuff. We're just going to kind of go with the flow, see what you guys want to hear, talk about the Grizzly life, the way of the Grizzly, or kind of the mentality of that. Maybe we'll talk some nutrition, some diet stuff, maybe some workout regime stuff or whatever. So appreciate you guys listening to episode 4. If you need, contact us via email. It will be marketing@fitnessgrizzly. If you check out our website at thegrizzlylife.com, we've got some special edition stuff on there right now. We do have a special edition podcast t-shirt on there for our early supporters and that kind of stuff. So feel free to check that out. That's all I've got for you guys today. So appreciate you listening. You got anything?
Nope, I think that does it for today. And then obviously, like you mentioned, the upcoming episodes will be a lot different than, say, some of these early historical ones, but still touched on stories from the past to give context for why we have mentality that we do today, or give context for why we are the way we are, if you will. So that's all I got for you guys today.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys. We'll see you next episode.